Empathy is one of the most celebrated virtues of our culture, but what happens when the word gets hijacked? When it used to mean understanding how somebody feels, and now it means you have to believe what I believe if you really care about me. We're talking about that today and more on Leading Forward.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us today on Leading Forward, man. Another hard topic to discuss today. And so this season is all about the uncompromised leader, right? And so if we're going to uncompromise, we're going to have to be able to say the hard things, be able to do the hard things in order to get better. You know, really, this has been a fun journey and really thinking about it. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, sharing this with others, making sure that you're following us on social media. We want to make sure that we're able to add the most amount of value. That's why we're doing this. We want to be able to add value to people. And so grateful to be in this journey with you and for so many people who have liked and commented and been a part of this.
Talked to somebody at the church about 3 weeks ago because they knew we were in Gap, right? In filming. And they're like, are you done? Like, you got to come back. And I'm like, man, hey, thank you so much. Yes, we are coming back. But yeah, so it was just great feedback. Value add for them. So like you said, Nick, that's what we want. And we're growing and sharpening as we talk about today. You know, obviously last week, leadership in crisis, and we really went hard on accountability and what that looks like. So that continuation of that conversation brings us right to today.
Yeah, and I think this is a big thing that is part of leadership is that great leaders always have to be accountable.
Yeah.
That's part of being good and being great and not just being good enough, but embracing that accountability and really enjoy the conversation last week and, you know, going through that Venn diagram and just kind of seeing where we are and those different things makes us really evaluate our own leadership and where we are and what's healthy, what's toxic. Because the reality is, you know, we're talking about toxic empathy today. There is toxic culture. There is toxic environments. There are things that are very unhealthy, and the way to overcome those is through accountability, having the hard conversations, and not backing down when truth really needs to be spoken.
It does. I love, as we're talking about this, I've heard it said, this isn't mine, but we were actually benchmarking with a church out in Arizona. It was called CCV, Christ Church of the Valley. And one of the gents there that we were talking to says, hey, Jesus was always kind, but he wasn't always nice. Meaning, like, truth is kindness.
Yeah.
That is love. But you don't always have to be nice because that means you're never going to ruffle feathers or offend someone or say anything that's going to cause them emotional distress.
Yeah, and I think that's where we are in our culture today, right?
Yeah.
That we have to be overly empathetic to anything that's going on in someone's life.
Yeah.
And so as we get into this, you know, we're going to talk about iron sharpening iron, and we're going to talk about what is toxic empathy and what does it look like and what's healthy, what's unhealthy. But I think one of the things we have to do is just define what this looks like.
Yes. Even toxic, even the word toxic. So let's hit a couple of those. As we frame this, and if you're already listening to this, like, wait, hang on a second, man. Empathy is good. Jesus had empathy. What's going on here? These guys are smoking the evidence. Well, hold on. Compassion. The Bible actually says Jesus had compassion on them. So let's, for the sake of argument, for training purposes today, compassion is, I care about your pain and I want to help. Is that fair?
That's good.
Okay.
I like that.
You want to hit, do you have the next, healthy empathy?
Yeah. So empathy can be good. It needs to be good, right? And healthy empathy means I understand how you feel. So not do I feel your pain, but I understand your pain as well.
Like you're being thoughtful about it, right? You know, you're considering all the elements of what's behind it. And then toxic empathy, this is where we'll lean in. If you care about me, you must affirm my feelings and agree with, ding, 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 my conclusions and my opinions on things.
Yeah, and this is where it really is the rub, right? This is where the conflict actually happens, the construction of a building versus just appeasing people, right?
Yeah.
And what we see in Jesus is he never appeased
No.
the Pharisees. He
Right.
spoke truth, and whether they wanted to hear it or their eyes were open to it, did not negate how he was going to speak.
Yes.
So we have to be able to speak in love. We have to be able to care for
Amen.
other people, be able to show compassion, show all the fruits of the Spirit,
Respect.
but never compromise truth.
That's right.
Yeah. So when I was thinking about this, thinking about what is toxic empathy, and here's what I thought about: it removes accountability.
Yes.
At its heart, it removes accountability, and we have to give a big shout out.
Allie Beth Stuckey.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one and only.
Her book, and this is a huge part of it. She's talked about it
Empathy.
with Charlie Kirk, and she's been on all different podcasts.
Pastor Josh too.
Yeah, I think Pastor Josh interviewed her a while back, and just looking at these things. So for me, when I started looking at these things and trying to not take just her, but how do I understand this and putting it all together, there's a couple of things that I just saw. Number one, it is removes accountability. So therefore, it's excusing destructive behavior because someone had a difficult past.
Yes.
It is refusing to confront wrongdoing in order to avoid hurt feelings.
Yeah.
And it is compassion that ultimately enables dysfunction.
Yes. I get it.
So with that, empathy is important. But what we see is that Satan always takes what is good and takes it to an extreme, right? So sex and marriage is a blessing of God.
Yeah.
But sex to the extreme is sexual immorality.
Yes.
You can have a little wine for your belly, but then we make it an alcoholic.
Yes.
Right? So Satan always wants to take what God intended for good and change it and manipulate it and distort it in order that we take it to a level that is not healthy at all and not spiritual, not holy.
Yeah. Taking something there's 90% truth in there, Nick, right? Like I do love that person and they do have a legitimate reason to have experienced pain. And so like, yes, that's real. That's true. And I don't know how much we'll get into it, but we may get into some specific examples trying to keep this within your drive time or workout time, whatever. But this is one, Nick, where I would love to see some comments, some questions after the fact, because we really do want to know how you're seeing this play out, how this is impacting you as a leader. Maybe it's family. Maybe it's family and in-laws and you know, that's creating quite a complexity.
Yeah.
A common one, and I think we may circle the wagons back to this, is, Pastor, my son is having his wedding. And it's a same-sex wedding relationship. And I'm torn. What do I do? And so if that's you or if you have a similar situation, stay with us and we'll hit that at the end.
Yeah, and I think those are the hard things.
Oh my goodness, yes.
That are personal. They're deep. They're about family. They're about connection. And how do I love well?
Yes.
And still love truth.
Yep.
And you can't ever break up, speak the truth in love. That they have to go together. You can't just speak love, and you can't just speak truth, because truth can be harsh and mean. So we have to be able to balance those things. And I think that's what's really important in this whole conversation.
I was watching, yes and amen, and that leads me to this. I was watching Allie Beth Stuckey, who is really a pro. I don't know what the show is, where she's surrounded by like 30, 40 people with other beliefs. And she has to make, hey, I'm making this assertion, I'm making this claim. And then they get to, you know, race for the chair and argue back and forth and debate. And she did a fantastic job. But that's really what the consistent difference was. She was pointing to the truth of Scripture. Truth in love, truth in grace. And every argument that she was faced with was just grace. There was an argument as to what truth was, and you know, some of the more articulate red people, they did a pretty good job, but
it really is this overwhelming phenomenon in our society right now.
Yes.
And it's my feelings, my experience trump everything.
Narcissism.
And that's where it really comes down to.
That's a whole other episode, man.
But that's really what it comes down to is my experience, my feelings trump anything else in the world. And if you don't agree with it, then you're toxic and you're wrong.
But wait, Nick, I mean, but what if my feelings are to help someone else, you know? Would you say that's still your
Sure.
view of what you want to elevate and what you want to make the issue? Yeah.
Because a lot of times, even in that, it's about my own ego, about me helping them and making sure that they love me or they appreciate me or they see what I'm doing for them.
Like I think God, that he's opened my eyes to see where I've been an idiot in the past in this way. Like I sure have. Absolutely.
You know, one of the things I have this online platform that I teach men, and it continues to grow. More men are joining it every week. It's on the school platform, and it's called Impact Manhood.
Impact Manhood, baby.
And one of the things that we talk about in there is this idea of happy wife,
happy life,
right? Well, that can be true and very much a lie at the same time, depending on how you look at it. And I think it falls into this toxic empathy.
Yes.
Are you going to sit and do nothing, or are you going to lead her well? Right. And so a lot of guys say happy wife, happy life means I'll just tell her yes to everything in order that I'm never the bad guy. But that also means you're never leading.
Yeah.
And you are abandoning your role in your home as pastor of your home, as leader of your home. It's not only in the home, it's in workplaces.
That's right.
It's in churches. It's in every environment because we're afraid to offend people. But, you know, the truth has to offend.
There's a wise man who once said, you choose who you lose. Meaning you're not necessarily cutting everybody, but you have to state your position, be ready to articulate the truth behind the why of how you got there. And you're choosing who you will offend, but it's not an opinion. It's not subjective. That's going to be determined by their response to truth.
Yes.
And so I am in a way saying that some people will definitely disagree with this, but they're not. And this is where we can so take courage. If you're advocating for a clear, biblically founded truth in an argument, in a position for the value creation of your family, whatever it is, man, just take heart that you're standing on truth, and there will be people who are offended, but I was going to go somewhere else with that. Why don't you come in and make it better?
Okay, so me and you've talked about this. I told you one of my goals for 2026 is, Scripture said, is to your glory to overlook an offense. That's what Proverbs says.
19:11.
And so it's for your glory to overlook an offense. And the gospel is always offensive. So one of my goals for 2026 is to be less offended and more offensive. Because I have to speak the truth. I have to go after the things of God. I have to do them in love.
Right.
And I can't abandon the truth or abandon love. So I need to be less offended by things and more offensive because I'm fighting for the truth of the gospel.
And if you are truly less offended, not that you're taking the moral high ground, but you are secure. You are not responding emotionally. And so if you're less offended, you're less likely, listen to this, guys, you're less likely to burn bridges and more likely to keep healthy dialogue going. So, as we talk about disagreements on certain things with family members or coworkers, if you want to look at it as moral high ground, whatever. But if you respond logically, thoughtfully, with truth and grace, as opposed to getting personally offended, I mean, that's probably like the first emotional thing that gets triggered. But guess what? We're big boys and girls. And so we have to be able to say, hang on, man. When I was 18, I responded emotionally. When I was 21, I did. And I'm 37 now. I'm 45. I'm 47. But,
And you're not 37.
You cannot respond the same way. Yeah.
No, and that's part of our spiritual growth. That should be more of our maturity just in life, right?
Yeah.
You even talked about last week on how you responded to this kid in the parking lot, that there was some maturity in that you didn't respond with just emotion. Emotions are good.
Yep.
God has given us those emotions. They just can't be the driving force for our life.
Boom.
And I think that's what we have to hold firm to. So just a couple of things, understanding toxic is real. There
Yes.
are real toxic environments that you don't need to be a part of.
Yeah.
A toxin is something that enters the body to try to hurt and destroy the body. So there can be this biological toxin that enters. There can be relationships that are psychologically toxic. There can be workplace or organization toxicity, right, that continues to grow. There can be the culture that's this ideology. So all those can be real.
Right.
It's not saying they're not real. We're not saying that toxic masculinity doesn't exist or anything else.
Yeah.
All these things do exist, but how do we have a balance of the truth with those things?
And I think it's clear to let everyone hear this or reinforce, if we haven't articulated it well enough yet, what we're not saying. What we're not saying is empathy is bad. What
Absolutely
we're not saying is that that it's unbiblical to have empathy. It is not. Jesus had. I prefer to use the word compassion because that's the best word for what the word was. So, but to Nick's point, to your point, when you do a couple of things, it moves from toxic empathy can be well intended. It doesn't have to be malicious, but I think there are a couple things, and this is going to be helpful for people to understand signs that your empathy is sliding over to become toxic. Okay. You want to, we can go back and forth. Yeah. Number one was feelings replace truth. Mm-hmm. Feelings replace truth. Feeling, like you just said, feelings are real. They make a great dashboard with indicators, but they don't make a good control panel.
Yeah.
So they're there for a reason, and we're wise to understand what we're feeling. And I think we're mature when we do. Toxic empathy says, if it feels true, it must be true. And so our culture is buying that lie in big doses right now. Yeah, what say you?
And because the culture is so extreme on this right now, I mean,
yes,
you can get in your algorithm and start watching some craziness of different, empathetic people that just feel like they should take care of everybody, and that's not their job. Yeah. But don't negate you and your home and your church and your organization that you lead and saying, well, that's just out there. We still have to understand what's really going on inside of us at the same time.
Yeah.
So part of that is that if it feels this way, it must be true. Mm-hmm. Well, the way I see it right now in the workforce and working with so many different companies and large and small, from entrepreneurs to people trying to hire employee number 200, right?
Yeah.
Is that, especially with younger generation, if it's difficult, then it's toxic. If I don't like it, it's toxic.
Yes.
And part of growth is it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, you're going to get triggered.
Have to learn new things, and you can't just stay the same and going, well, I don't want to learn this because this is difficult. Well, that's part of growth.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it's toxic because they're trying to push you forward.
Dude, you even have to grow through bad leadership. You are going to be under a bad leader at some point, and you're still responsible for you. You're still responsible for how you thrive, shut down, whatever you choose to do, man. You can't blame it all on the leader. Yes, there's an argument to be made for part of that. But life is what do we say? 90% what happens to you. 10% what happens to you, and 90% how you respond to it. Yeah.
And I think that's the key part. How do you respond?
Yeah.
How do you respond to these things that you don't like, that make you feel a certain way? It's okay that you felt like that. What are you going to do with it? So the number one is feelings replace trust. Number two, disagreements become harm. Mm-hmm. Disagreements become harm.
Yeah.
There's this idea that words are now assault. And because you said something that offended me, you are now assaulting me and causing harm to me. And you're going, no. Yeah. These were words, sticks and stones may break my bones, right? But the reality is that is not an assault, and people want to use it as a full-out assault.
That's good.
Upon them. How do you see this playing out?
I just saw this in Germany, and I have not vetted this, so let me say that. It's against the law to insult someone.
Yes.
Have you seen that?
Is this real? This can't be real.
I don't know. I'm going to just assume it's not. So all my German friends, I'm sorry if that's not true, but when we believe words are violence, when we believe words are violence, to your point, they justify silencing speech. That was said by Jonathan Haidt in a book. And that's exactly what we see right now. Justification of violence by certain people and groups of people is based upon their perceived victim being victimized, being hurt, or an unfairness in pay, or an unfairness in responsibilities or trust, or whatever the argument is. If their acute view of who's being harmed, which kudos to them for at least identifying that someone needs help, that there's a disparity, like for real, I'm being serious. So what we're not saying is that's ridiculous. That's not ridiculous. That's being human. And that's being an awesome person. Way to go. That's having empathy. And then it gets toxic when you're saying, because I am so fixated on this micro issue, it could be a big issue, but in the grand scheme of all of issues, I'm going to focus on how it's impacting this person, people group, or organization to the detriment, to the sometimes harm of everyone else.
Yeah. So I saw just recently a incident, I think it was in Dearborn, Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
And it was with Smoothie King.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I actually got to speak at Smoothie King's National Convention last year. Have done some work with them over the last year or so to do some leadership development, speaking for different departments for them. Been incredible opportunity just to be able to invest in some of their highest level leaders.
Shout out Smoothie King. We love you.
But they actually fired 2 employees because someone walked in with a Trump sweatshirt on.
Okay.
And the 2 people behind the counter said, "Your sweatshirt is triggering me and I will not serve you." And this is where disagreement becomes harm.
That's a great example.
Wait, my sweatshirt is hurting you?
Yeah.
How is my sweatshirt hurting you? It's actually really soft. It feels great on me, right? And to say that's triggering me.
Yeah.
Which is saying I'm not responsible for any of my actions. I'm not responsible for any of my feelings. I'm not responsible for anything that I do moving forward because you triggered me.
Doesn't it just so if you're hearing this and somebody shared this with you and you're like, man, these guys are ridiculous. Can we just pause? And everything that Nick just said, doesn't that just logically sound dumb? Right? Doesn't it all right, we better move on. Can I say the third thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, go say what you want to say on that.
Okay, last thing on that. People want to say, "Oh, are you Trump?" If you'd missed 2 weeks ago, we talked about politics and religion and where we stand on this, and that we both agree that both extremes are very dangerous. They are very toxic. They're not spiritual. And so if you missed that, go back and watch that episode.
Yes.
In this, it's not about a party. It's about the response. A sweatshirt, these words, this thing.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we've made that person their response. You trigger me, so I can treat you however. I don't have to serve you, as the gold standard for, well, you have the right to do that because you were hurt.
Yeah.
You weren't hurt. You just didn't like it.
That's good, brother.
All right, number 3.
Okay, so 3 signs your empathy is toxic. Number 1 was feelings replace truth. Second was disagreement becomes harm. And then finally, compassion gets weaponized. Compassion gets weaponized. Someone shares pain and suddenly everyone must affirm their conclusion. Compassion listens, but listen, wisdom evaluates.
Yeah.
I think we're missing that last part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can talk really, you can go read the book of Proverbs and understand a lot of this.
Yeah, buddy.
That evaluation part.
Yes.
The person who speaks first seems right.
That's right.
But the wise listen.
Yes.
And going, that's not the full story.
Yeah.
There's more to be heard. And so because you were hurt because you experienced some kind of pain, well, then the other person is automatically wrong. There's more to the story.
That's good.
And wisdom evaluates the fullness, not just this one little slice of pie that I got to observe.
And sequentially as well. Yes, your actions may be helping the person that's right there, or let me just call this one out, but you blocking ice in the street. Right. Let's just use a real case study.
Well, this is Uncompromised Leader. We're talking about hard things. We're going to talk about real life issues, right?
Yes.
And you're helping me to be more offensive. So let's go.
So that person is cheering on the person who they're trying to help. Great. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Whatever. Until it causes you to violate law, affect policy in a negative way, or harm someone. And so you're seeing that one slice, I'm going to help this person escape. But if you're in a sanctuary, in sanctuary cities, I know this isn't the whole thing, but it's relevant.
It really boiled out of toxic empathy.
It really has. There's compassion for those incarcerated, so they don't turn them over to ICE. They don't want to see them deported. They release them to the streets. And what happens is ICE has a job to do. When I was in the Marshal Service, we had those same detainers. It's called a detainer, and DRO, Detention and Removal Office. We would work with them. And sometimes on accident, there would be a person who doesn't get the detainer filed. They'd be released. And it was a big deal just for one. We would say, oh no, we got to get this resolved. But sanctuary cities are doing that in mass. And so they're having an acute view of who they're helping, right? So in a way, they're trying to help someone. It comes from a place, at least I think I can acknowledge, of desiring to help another human, but you're not seeing what's going on the other end of that, or you choosing to turn a blind eye of all the work, all the manpower, all the murders and harm and rape that are fruit of letting those people go inside those cities.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing in this and why this plays out. And so I think passive men sitting doing nothing. I think women who have this Jezebel spirit to be able to take over and control are all part of this. Yeah. And I think how this plays out is God has placed things under authority, right? Yeah. And so man is under authority. Man is the glory of God, is what Corinthians tells us. And a woman is the crown to her husband. Mm-hmm. But when a woman understands that in her role as a wife, as a mother, she is to be the caretaker, the provider, the love person who shows love in the family. Yeah. When the woman abandons that role to do it for the family, she tries to do it for a city. Mm-hmm. And that's not a role for the city or for the community or for society. It's a role for your home. Yeah. And the abandonment of that tries to lead you, well, we need to care for everybody. But you're supposed to care for your home. Yeah. And you didn't do it there. So now you're trying to put it on someone else, and that's not your role.
Dude, that's a huge psychological school of thought that Allie Beth Stuckey talks about, that of several, it's highly talked about right now. And exactly what you're saying, it's misplaced or
misappropriated.
Or directed toward the wrong things, and that motherly righteous instinct.
Given by God.
Beautiful.
That Satan has twisted.
Goes and starts being applied to things that it frankly aren't as important as the family, and so, well, let me say that a different way. I could see how somebody could take a clip out of that and turn that out of context. Your primary focus is your family.
Absolutely.
And then, yes, if you want to be an advocate for change, yes, absolutely. We just don't want to use that kind of energy that's meant to be for the building up of a righteous household to tear down.
And that's understanding these are good things.
Yes.
Gifts of God, Spirit of God.
Yes.
Understanding of being able to be loving and compassionate and understanding that God has shown us these things.
Yeah.
And understanding that using the wrong way, they become very unholy.
That's right. That's right.
So when you think about this, there's some key scriptures I think that go along with
let's
this.
talk about it.
Number one is Proverbs 27:6. Faithful are the wounds of a friend over the kisses of an enemy.
Yeah.
So for me to love you may mean I have to create wounds for you, as opposed to just kissing you and telling you it's all right, bud. It's fine.
But what if I don't want to hear that, man? That might hurt my feelings, Nick.
But this is what faithfulness is. This is what a true friend is. This is what it means to really care for someone.
So you're saying you love me enough to hurt my feelings if you feel like it's going to be the best thing for me.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about in that situation. You and Perry have a great marriage, and so if you're sucking as a husband, and we're going, you're not going to come to me and go and expect me just to tell you, oh man, you're right, she's treating you bad. You have the right to do whatever you want.
Right.
No, that's foolishness.
Better not.
And if you surround yourself with people who will tell you what you want to hear rather than what you need to hear, you are setting yourself up for disaster.
Preach, Pastor. Let's go.
So part of being a good friend, being a good boss, being a good business owner is not just affirming people for everything they want, but speaking the truth.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. In your family, if a child says it's too hard, I don't want to practice, I don't want to finish the season, empathy says, hey, bro, I get it. I get that you're hurting. I get that it's hard. And, we're going to finish what we started. Yeah. Toxic empathy, just as an example, says, okay, it's hard. You don't have to finish, dude. You don't have to finish.
You're right.
Sweetie.
It's okay.
It's okay. That coach does suck. That's not your fault. You don't have to take ownership. Any of those things.
But you're setting them up for failure in the long run.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be difficult. That's part of life.
Hard things, that's how we grow. We've talked about that. In marriage, one spouse says, I feel unhappy. And so healthy empathy listens and works through it. Okay, tell me more.
Yeah.
Dude, somebody take the kids. Let's go on a date and let's not have wine that night and let's just talk about it and figure out more about that. But toxic empathy says something like, any decision is justified because of their feelings.
That's right.
Yeah, girl power, listen now. If you're a bro, if you're a sis, and you're giving some of those to your friend who's married, stop it. Stop it. If you're saying, hey, he deserves it, or hold out from him because of this, if you're trying to speak into those situations and if you don't truly have the unity of the marriage in your best interest, then shut up.
Come on.
I'm telling you, because I'm thinking about people that, if I'm counseling someone and someone else's, and this happens so much, you know this. But my sister said this. But my mom says this. I don't care what they said. If it's against unifying, reconciliation, specifically talking marriage here, and I'm not talking about abuse, and I'm not talking about infidelity, but everything short of that, this applies to.
Yeah, and I think what people want to do is take one thing and say, well, what about this? Well, what about this?
Yeah.
And you don't make decisions based upon one-offs.
That's right.
Right? It's a
no business does.
No, absolutely not. So you talked about marriage. Talk about how this works out in the church.
Oh, man. Let's use a silly one that actually hits a lot of churches, I think, is that the preferences of the saved become elevated because they are the people who serve, or perhaps they are the most generous givers. And so pastors and boards and financial committees can unfortunately feel the pressure of that and then vote in such a way or make decisions in such a way that they're catering to the preferences of the saved instead of trying to do anything short of sin to reach people for Christ.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. And
yes,
I have a hot sports opinion on that statement, but
sports opinion. I like that.
I don't think the goal should be to do anything short of sin. I think it should be to be so holy that it attracts the unholy.
Ooh, that's kind of like love them till they ask why. Kind of.
That's right.
Yes. I love that.
And I think there's just a different philosophy. What you're saying there is understanding what's the goal, what's mission critical? What is our purpose? And we're not going to bow down to people to abandon our purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how this plays out in the business world is, in the business world, we don't want to do evaluations. We don't want to correct someone.
Yes. Talk about that.
And so we allow the lowest performer on a team to continue to be the lowest performer on a team and put more weight on the person who's overperforming. So your best player gets burned out because they have no reward and they just get more work. And your lowest level player, who you refuse to correct, continues to be talking to the team.
Yeah.
And what that does is it drops performance of everybody.
Yes.
The entire team's performance drop. Who you are as a company begin to drop. And it erodes your trust.
Yes, it does.
When you allow the underperformer to stay and never evaluate them, never correct them, you are saying, I allow this. And what you allow creates your culture.
That's right.
Not just about what you say, but what you allow determines more about your culture than anything else.
Yes.
And if you are such a weak leader that you can't have those conversations, you are leaning into toxic empathy.
Yeah. Get some coaching on it.
Sure, that's what we
Hit
do.
up Nick. Hit up me. Like, hey, how do I enter into difficult conversations? And I've let it go on up to this point, and we're so far along in the relationship, I don't really know how to handle it. Man, reach out, get some help.
Yeah, well, I did this just a couple weeks ago with this company, and they're a branch manager type position. And it's a high level position that has just continued to underperform. And when we went through this process to help them have the conversation, we want to coach them up or coach them out.
Yeah.
That's the goal. They went, I didn't know. They've changed their entire attitude because
Wow.
you
Also,
weren't-
it was that simple. The person who was doing the violation of
yeah.
culture. Okay. Oh, wow.
So they were so afraid to offend the person because of this, this cancer of toxic empathy in our world, that they weren't willing to have the conversation. But once they did, the person's behavior immediately began to change.
We owe that to our people.
Yeah, absolutely. So it goes back to what we were talking about last week of accountability.
Yeah. We owe that to our family. It could be the same thing in a family situation. Hey, sis. Hey, mom, you're overstepping, and let's talk about it, because here's the impact I know you're not trying to, but here's the impact. So as we move forward from today, here's how this is going to look.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, oh my, are you serious? I had no idea you thought that. Oh, baby, I'm so sorry. Oh, and it's like a relationship enhancer when we bring that level of clarity.
Okay, so had a couple more things real quick. And we'll wrap it up for today. Had someone tell me this a while back, and we were talking about creating boundaries.
Oh yeah, right.
Boundaries is pop psychology because we don't want to talk about biblical accountability.
I remember you saying that.
And so I think that's a key component, that part of empathy, the way you erode toxic empathy is by having accountability and being able to show real love, not weak love.
Yeah. I think one of the things that real empathy, healthy empathy requires of us is that we understand. I think we started with this. I can't remember what we were talking about before the show, but it requires you to have a healthy understanding of why you have the position that you do. And you want that. We need that. So get that.
Yeah.
Whatever the issue is.
All right. So real quick, let's wrap it up with this. Healthy leadership cultures replace toxicity with truth plus empathy.
Yeah.
Accountability plus grace, strength plus humility. So I'm going to say those again. Healthy leadership replaces toxicity with truth plus empathy, accountability plus grace, and strength plus humility.
That's good.
And all those are needed.
Yeah. Wow.
In our personal relationships, in our families, in our businesses, in our church, in all of our relationships. Yeah. That is what our society really needs. And you can't change it on the society level if you don't change it on the personal level.
Starts with one person.
That's right.
You.
Absolutely.
That's right. I love it, man.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us today on Leading Forward with Nick and Jeremy. We are so honored that you are part of this each week. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow. We're going to continue to bring you the very best hard topics in order that you can continue to learn, grow, and get better, and always lead forward.